created in the image of God and therefore contains an element of divinity within his soul. Nietzsche sees this dogma of fundamental equality as a poison for mankind because it is used by the mediocre mass to enforce slave morality. He despises both socialism and liberal democracy as unnatural ideologies that will lead to the dominance of the nihilistic herd of the Western world until the end of the 21st century. In Nietzsche's book, the prophet Zarathustra ultimately comes to the conclusion that the masses are unwilling to accept the significance of the Übermensch as the antithesis to the degenerate last man for the sake of civilizational survival. Instead, he assembles a group of higher men in whom he sees the potential for greatness and a willingness to transcend the egalitarian grip of the herd. Tyler mimics this approach by building a group of dedicated followers who seek to overcome the emasculating nature of contemporary Western society. Fight Club transitions to Project Mayhem, where recruits have to prove their perseverance before discarding the fake individualism that consumer and advertising culture has sold to them.
You are not your job. You're not how much money you have in the bank. You're not the car you drive. You're not the contents of your wallet. You're not your fucking khakis. You are the all-singing, all-dancing crap of the world.
What unites these men is that their life is without purpose or meaning, and so they decide to sacrifice themselves for a greater idea.
Like a monkey ready to be shot into space. Space monkey. Ready to sacrifice himself for the greater good.
Tyler prepares them for a spiritual war to overthrow the unnatural order of postmodern society.
You are not special. You are not a beautiful or unique snowflake. You are the same decaying organic matter as everything else.
Tyler built himself an army.
His ultimate goal is the destruction of the last man mentality that has created a civilization of mediocrity and decline. The group initially vandalizes various inanimate objects, targeted specifically because they symbolize the corporate mentality of Western consumer culture. The narrator grows increasingly uncomfortable with this situation as he fears the ever-expanding scope of Tyler's movement. This reveals his remaining attachment to the established order, mostly because he fears the consequences of overthrowing it. In his mind, Fight Club was intended to be a high-level self-help group and should have never evolved into anything greater. This, however, would have meant that the weekly basement fights would have been nothing more than a way for these men to escape the emasculating nature of their everyday experience. Escaping into an imaginary ice cave during a self-help seminar or escaping into the basement of a local bar, neither would have been fundamentally different. Tyler understands that Fight Club could only ever serve as an introduction to a dissident mindset, but the logical endgame would have to be the establishment of a new civilizational order. Project Mayhem is the practical implementation of this ambition. Its primary purpose is to destroy centralized financial institutions to accelerate the inevitable collapse of the current system. Its secondary purpose is to create a decentralized network of spiritual warrior types who will form the aristocratic backbone of the new order that will arise from the resulting state of chaos. The Übermensch will be born out of the dark cloud that is mankind and will implement this process by what Nietzsche describes as the re-evaluation of all values. This will challenge conventional slave morality and ultimately aims to fill the nihilistic void that was left by the metaphorical death of God with a new set of values that emphasizes self-mastery over the human mind. The values of materialism and egalitarianism will be rejected for their emasculating and inauthentic nature. The narrator lives through a so-called near-life experience in form of a car crash, after which his psychological alter ego and quasi-father figure Tyler abandons him. This allows the narrator to witness the progression of his own movement, which immediately frightens him, especially once he realizes that people are actually sacrificing themselves for this greater cause.
In death, a member of Project Mayhem has a name. His name is Robert Paulson.
His name is Robert Paulson.
His name is Robert Paulson. His name is Robert Paulson.
Come on, guys,
His
please,
name
stop it.
is Robert Paulson. His name is Robert Paulson.
Upon further investigation, he learns that Fight Club chapters have sprung up across the country, which leads him to the discovery of Tyler's true nature as part of his imagination.
Say my name.
Tyler Durden, you fucking freak. What's going on?
Tyler, I don't understand this.
You were looking for a way to change your life. You could not do this on your own. All the ways you wish you could be, that's me. I look like you want to look, I fuck like you want to fuck, I am smart, capable, and most importantly, I'm free in all the ways that you are not. Little by little, you're just letting yourself become Tyler Durden.
You are not your job or how much money you have in the bank!
No, you have a house.
Rented in your name.
You have jobs. You have a whole life.
You have night jobs because you can't sleep. While you step and make soap.
Marla, you're fucking Marla, Tyler.
Technically, you're fucking Marla, but it's all the same to her.
Oh my God.
This represents the process of becoming oneself as described by Nietzsche. By rejecting the vision of how a Western man ought to behave as defined by the system itself, and embracing a lifestyle that embodies the nature of what a human man actually is, the narrator slowly but surely becomes an individual among a herd of nameless last men. The struggle to accept Tyler Durden as the authentic identity of the narrator is the ultimate purpose of the film Fight Club. This can only be achieved by destroying the inauthentic aspect of his identity, a process that naturally leads to resistance by the former self in a desperate bid to survive. The narrator hands himself to the local police department and informs them about Project Mayhem in an attempt to sabotage the planned attack on the before-mentioned financial institutions. The PD, however, has been infiltrated by members of Project Mayhem, who then attempt to physically castrate the narrator. He successfully defends himself against his own men, however, and manages to escape.
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid. Then I ran some more.
Sabotaging the movement that lifted the narrator out of a state of apathy and nihilism to protect the status quo proves that he is still emasculated by the system.
Greatest thing you've ever done, man.
No, I can't let this happen.
You know there are 10 other bombs in 10 other buildings?
God damn it, since when is Project Mayhem about murder?
The buildings are empty. Security, maintenance, all our people. We're not killing anyone, man. We're setting them free.
Bob is dead. They shot him in the head.
You want to make an omelet, you gotta break some eggs.
In a penultimate scene, the inner conflict between the narrator and Tyler is visualized, wherein the former is eviscerated by the latter. Finally, the protagonist throws himself off a staircase, hitting rock bottom in a metaphorically Nietzschean sense. The narrator now finds himself engaged in the last imaginary conversation with Tyler.
This is too much. I don't want this.
What do you want? You wanna go back to the shit job? Fucking condo world watching sitcoms? Fuck you! I won't do it.
At this point, he has endured a maximum of pain and suffering. He cannot stop the following events, but for the first time he takes action on his own initiative.
Hey, good for you. Doesn't change a thing.
Tyler. I want you to really listen to me. My eyes are open.
This act symbolizes his transformation from a disillusioned, nameless consumer to the individual Tyler Durden, who embodies the qualities of Zarathustra's Übermensch. He accepts suffering and death as part of the human experience and does so without fear in a clear state of mind. By pulling the trigger, he willingly removes all attachments to his previous life and the expectations of postmodern society while fully embracing the possibility of immediate annihilation. It is in this moment that his former self is destroyed as he regains his masculinity by taking action and sacrificing himself for a higher purpose. He gives up all illusions of hope or control because they have been pacifying him his entire life. Tyler regains the freedom to give his life meaning because all distractions evaporate the second he faces his mortality head on. The bullet passes through his cheek, but metaphorically kills the projection of Tyler because it has become superfluous now. By killing his imaginary father figure, Tyler becomes his own man, independent and free to make his own decisions. This reflects the essence of Zarathustra's teachings, in which God is the Father, and upon his death mankind has to overcome its own mediocrity to reach a higher state of being and fill the void of nihilism with meaning. Consequentially, Tyler accepts not only his new self, but also his final break with postmodern society, symbolized by the climactic explosion, and most importantly his desire for Marla Singer. She was the reason why his impotence escalated into the creation of his imaginary hyper-masculine alter ego. His character transformation now allows him to finally overcome emasculation by engaging in an honest romantic relationship. All in all, Fight Club is not a simple story, but it is relatable to many men of our generation. It reflects Nietzsche's belief that Western civilization has been descending into mediocrity ever since the self-destruction of traditional Christian values. Western men are suffering from a disease that can only be described as emasculation resulting from existential nihilism and death anxiety. Instead of heroically facing the inevitability of their physical annihilation, they seek refuge in meaningless activities such as hedonism, consumerism, and self-improvement. The resulting postmodern society is one that is defined by lazy, fearful, and impotent last man types that drag each other down under the pretense of equality. Fight Club depicts the spiritual path of one such man to step over his metaphysical impotence and ultimately the system itself by embracing pain and suffering courageously. Only once he has sacrificed his former psychological self-conception can he regain his masculinity and with it the freedom to create a meaningful existence.